Hey there, coaches. I'm Rich Prado, owner of Play in School and host of Travel Ball Talk, where I talk to travel ball coaches from the best organizations in the country in order to learn tips, tricks, and tactics that other coaches can implement within their own organizations. Additionally, we will discuss the current and future state of travel baseball. Today's guest is Tim Neiman, founder of Pride of the Diamond and head coach of DeSales University. Neiman is starting his 30th year as the head coach at DeSales and is a lock for the College Baseball Hall of Fame. He currently sits at 16th for all-time wins at the D3 level with just over 700 victories. Like several other guests, baseball is a bit of a family business for the Neimans, which we'll hear about. And Tim is one of the nicest guys in travel baseball. I hope you enjoy this episode of Travel Ball Talk. Coach Neiman, I appreciate you hopping on the podcast with us today. For all the listeners out there, I'm hoping you can tell everybody where you are and what your day job is, and then also introduce your travel ball organization.
That sounds good. Thank you for having me, Rich. I really appreciate it, and always willing to share with the community of baseball folks, and of course, a friend of mine, yourself as well. So I am currently the head baseball coach at DeSales University, entering my 30th year. So it's been a lifelong dream and a pleasure and an honor to be at DeSales. Never thought I'd be there that long. Like any young coach back in age 30 or so, I was figured I'd be there 5, 6, 7 years and move on to bigger and better things. But, you know, DeSales has really been home for me, home for my family. And, you know, luckily the administration has always been really, really good to us and providing what we need. And, you know, it's been a great place for me to work and for my kids to grow up at. So very pleased to be there. Year 30 will be here shortly. About 10 years ago, started an organization called Pride of the Diamond. And, you know, interesting, you know, where that came from. I'm a big Lou Gehrig guy, and, you know, watching Pride of the Yankees on on TV, movie classics one time. And I thought, well, there's a good name, Pride of the Diamond. So that's where it all stemmed from. And, you know, I think the folks that know me know that, you know, that is deep down what, you know, I do have a lot of pride in the game and family. And of course, baseball is just unbelievable. So, you know, I think it was a great fit for what I was hoping to accomplish. So Pride of the Diamond basically is, you know, I try to provide a great experience for the kids that play for us, you know, and make them better people on and off the field. It's really that simple of a mission. And luckily, I think we've been very, very good at that over the years. So
I'll jump in here. You know, one of the things that immediately comes to my mind is why, right? Like, why are you doing travel ball? Let's back up a second. You buried the lead. You've been at DeSales. This will be year 30. You thought you wouldn't be there more than a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but they kept you around. Well, the reason they probably kept you around is because you keep winning ball games. The last I checked, you're at 700 plus victories. Now, folks listening at home, Coach Neiman is at D3 DeSales University. D3 plays a much shorter season than the D1 guys. So 700 victories at the D3 level would be the equivalent of 1,000 wins if you do the math at the Division I level. 700 wins is probably, I'd have to go and look, but I think it's in the top 25 or top 30 all-time winningest coaches at the Division III level. So we're talking about a Hall of Famer on the line here. With that being said, why did you decide to get into the travel ball world?
Well, I think a bunch of reasons, and quite frankly and honestly, once my sons were done playing at DeSales University, I was a little concerned that the fire may, you know, dwindle out on me a little bit. And, having been able to coach them was certainly one of the joys of my life. But so I was a little worried about that. So it came to a little realization of, what else would I do? And I like baseball, and I like people, and I like, kids, and like to see them develop. So kind of tinkered with this out of the block. We actually started out managing other facilities, and that was very difficult to do. And we've since been out of that, for several years now. So we're left with probably the Diamonds just really travel teams from ages 10 to, 17U basically. And, it's kind of developed over the years to, let's really try to, again, make them better players between the lines, which I think is pretty easy. We do very well. But also, be there for them as a resource off the field, whether sports psychology, whether, it's college planning, it's helping them, find their way to wherever it is they want to go to school, finding the right fits, all those kinds of things. So, honestly, it's probably started it selfishly thinking, I'm not sure what I want to do. So I wanted to make sure I had a backup and not start from scratch. Well, since 10 years later, I'm still at the sales and probably, hopefully, Lord willing, be there another 10 years. But probably the Diamond will go on. 150 kids in a program and great families. And, it's really been a pleasure to be able to serve them in that fashion. So that's kind of where it all stemmed from, when we got going way back in the day, and it's kind of evolved and morphed into, where it stands today.
Okay, you've mentioned your boys a couple times. I think there's probably an appropriate time to expand on them a little bit. I believe, if my memory serves me correct, I actually developed a relationship with one of your sons, Nolan, before I ever met you. And you and I have now known each other for probably 5 years or so. So I met Nolan when he was coaching down at the IMG Academy, which he has since left. But he called me up, brought me down. We did some work with IMG, and then, I think he was kind of testing me out, and then maybe the next year he introduced me to you. I actually had no idea that you were running a travel organization up there. So he introduced me to you, and the rest is history as far as our relationship goes. But can you talk about Nolan and Doc, your other son, and talk about the family business a little bit?
Well, the baseball obviously is ingrained in our souls and our blood, and away from my father, who coached Little League and Connie Mack and American Legion, and he actually was American Legion coach in Quakertown, and basically stepped aside so I could begin my coaching career in Quakertown American Legion baseball at the age of 24. That's so awesome. I'll always love my father for that, obviously, and I've, God willing, really been able to pass along the love of the game, the passion for the game to both Nolan and Doc. And, both are still in the business. Nolan's running an academy in Bradenton, Florida called Square Up, a tremendous facility indoors. And, they're going to be very successful. And, just because he's such a hard worker. And, hopefully someday he's back in the college game. He's a tremendous teacher of the game and recruiter and personable and all those things. And Doc, my younger son, is now at Clarion University. He is the recruiting coordinator at Clarion and also played for me. And both, I should mention, both boys had an opportunity to play other places. I tried to stay out of that way, but, very thankful and grateful that they decided to end up playing for their dad. And, we've won a lot of games, with both of them. So I'm so proud of them, very, very, very much so. I think Doc is well on his way. He's making those sacrifices a young coach makes at a younger age, and I think he knows that at the end of the day, at the end of the ride, it's going to pay off for him. And again, Nolan's got a beautiful family, wife is a teacher, and 2 grandkids, 5-year-old Macy and 2-year-old Ty down there in Bradenton. So, I'm so proud of both of them, and honestly, they are much further along the road than I ever was at their ages. And, that's a credit to them for being learners of the game and enjoying the game. And, and I think those will continue over the years. And I guess the obvious thing would be really exciting for me if either one of them would be able to take over me whenever that day comes and keep the legacy going at the sales. But well, for now it is what it is.
You already said you're planning on being there another 10 years, and those guys have to feed their families, so they better keep working.
No, that's right. And they know my kind of time frame. I don't know if it's 10, but it'll be, in at least 7 to 10, somewhere in there. And who knows, health has a lot to do with it. And, thank God I'm feeling very, very good these days. Mentally, certainly very good. Physically, I'm reminded that I'll be 60 years old in December, but I think personality-wise, mentally, emotionally, I still feel like I'm 30 or 35 some days. My wife will tell you even younger than that. So, and I should mention, too, we had our stepson, my wife and I, her son, Jason, also played was in Allentown College. And he's not in the game, but his grandson, little Jason, is a 10-year-old with the Pride of the Diamond Iron Colts and doing very well, and he's going to have a bright baseball future also. So
nice.
So it's really is a family affair that keeps us all together.
So let's talk about the older age groups in Pride of the Diamond right now, and just that recruitable age ball player. You've been at DeSales for this will be year 30. What are some of the differences or similarities that you've seen for that recruitable age kid from 10 or 15 or 20 years ago versus the things that they're seeing and doing now? What are some kind of compare and contrast your from the college coach's perspective?
Well, there's so much more information that they're exposed to, and just give you a quick plug, Rich. I mean, the playing school filming is outstanding, and I think video and well done video and productive, produced, edited video is important for them. But they're exposed to so many other things that I think is 10 years ago to now, there's just so much more information, which leads to more confusion, in my opinion. And I think a lot of kids are really, maybe it's parents too, and even some travel organizations are delusional. And, I think that the travel founders, owners, operators really have to look at themselves and genuinely think, what's my why? Why am I doing this? Is it to, win championships? And I couldn't even tell you, there's so many of them. And I know to a college coach, other than seeing players, it doesn't matter, if you win an event somewhere in Georgia or Florida or Maryland or Timbuktu, it doesn't matter. We're really assessing the players and how they, their tool set and, how they interact with their teammates and their coaches and, keeping an eye on their parents as well. So I think that's stuff I don't think really occurred 10 years ago. So I think the guys that run these organizations, hey, if just be honest about it too. If your mindset and your mantra is, we're going to be one of the top travel organizations in the country, and we win this and we show our trophies on the website and social media, that's okay. Just admit it. If you're there and to do it and to the benefit of the kids, which I think is why we should be in it, we're servicing them. Nobody's really going to care 10 years from now, 20 years from now, even sooner who won where and what. They're going to care about, where the kid ended up going to school, where, did he become a productive member of society? Did he get his degree? What kind of a network did he have? And, he's made lifelong friends with his teammates and, coaches, hopefully. So that really is what it's about. And, the more we can try to influence, younger guys, the high school kids especially, about those aspects, the other stuff I think can fall into place, assuming, the baseball knowledge and the ability to deliver the service of teaching the game, is good, and I think some guys, fall on that as well. But, I don't begrudge anybody that does it. I understand it, and it's not going away. I think the one thing that, from an outsider standpoint, even though I'm still a little bit outside of it, is it's so unregulated. Everybody's got different kinds of rules and, regulations. And, man, it's just, I'm back from the American Legion days, and, I was inducted into Pennsylvania American Legion, years ago, and just, boy, how much simpler it was back then. But now the kids have so many options, and they're so confused, I think. And, just if you can be able to keep, some things in perspective, and we can talk a little deeper about it, but I really talk to the parents about 5 fits. It's an academic fit, an emotional fit, a financial fit, an athletic fit, and lastly, an emotional fit. Academic, social, financial, athletic, emotional, all in that order. If you keep those things in order, it can take the sting away from, having your son try to find the right college for him.
Oh boy, there's a lot to unpack there. The first thing I say it a lot. Listen, there's many different ways to run a travel ball organization. There's no right or wrong way. There's just different ways, right? And then, there are some teams who, their model is basically win at all costs, and they want the trophy, and, that can help the kids if winning those games brings eyeballs to the field. That's great. And then the flip side is the organization who, they'll straight tell you, hey, we're not going to even look at the scoreboard this weekend because we're here to showcase the guys and expose the guys, and we're going to be loose with our lineup and loose with our playing time because we're going to come in and out, and that's a totally different thing.
Yep.
Another point.
Both okay.
Both okay, just different, right? Yeah, it's not good or bad.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think parents need to figure out which one they're looking for. Now, if there's any parents listening, they need to understand one thing they need to realize very quickly is from that it's usually about that 14U to the 15U, or maybe sometimes from the 13 to the 14. There is a transition because at the lower age groups, there actually is some organization to these things, and there's, it's more tournament style, and it's more the wins matter, okay? And many of the parents struggle when they make that transition up to that showcase level, and they're looking around and the scoreboard's not on. And boy, that's a tough thing for a lot of the parents to understand. And I think you nailed it, where there is so much information out there that it's almost created more confusion with families. So hopefully organizations can provide some sound advice and direction, but hopefully families can hook on with somebody who they know, like, and trust, and can point them in the right direction as well. Boy, you touched on a lot of stuff there.
Yeah. The organization's responsibility doesn't end between the lines, that's for sure. A really good, solid one, will, help them through the process, help them make the right decisions and find those right fits. And Rich, you hit the nail exactly on the head. Probably transitions out at like at 15, ninth grade,
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, all the wins and the medallions and the trophies and stuff, really, that goes away. There's really not a whole lot of emphasis. Everybody likes to win, and everybody's keeping score in their head. We inter-squad scrimmage, and certainly the kids, for the most part, will know what's going on. But it's not the emphasis. Exposure is the emphasis, and it's kind of a double-edged sword because it is exposure and kind of breeds some selfishness, within an individual. And then, they go back to a college, and then you're expected to be a good teammate again. Mm-hmm. So, the hardest part for young guys to realize that and understand that you can be a good teammate even if the scoreboard's not on. And believe me, college guys watch those kinds of things, running on off the field and interacting in the dugout. How do you handle the adversity? All those things that add up and into a player's makeup. I used to work for a guy, Joe Consoli, with the Pittsburgh Pirates. This is before my college days and at a very young age, and he told me, he said, Timmy, after all the evaluation is done, what kind of a person is he? What kind of a person? And we all can evaluate with analytics that are available and all the other technology, but the trick of it is, what kind of a person is he at the end of the day? What kind of a person is he? Is he guy going to throw the bat, throw his helmet over the dugout, or is he just going to pick up the pieces and move on to the next at bat or next play? And, pro guys, as you probably know, scouts, I want to see them fail. I want to see them go for 20 to see how they get out of it, how they handle it, especially in minor league baseball. So I never forgot that. And I think that's helped me with success at DeSales. And I try to, transform all those ideals into, young guys that play for Pride of the Diamond.
Well, it's so much good stuff there. And it makes me think that, the parents or maybe that kid or maybe even, a young coach who hasn't been around the block for 30 years doing this like yourself, where they are kind of big fish, small pond situation. And what they fail to recognize is that talent's everywhere. There are so many good players out there. The really, really, really good ones, they stick out like a sore thumb. And then the really, really bad ones do too. Everybody can identify both groups. That group in the middle is a much larger group. And trying to figure out one versus the other, well, talent-wise, they're all pretty close. They throw the ball about the same speed, they run about the same, they hit about the same. And so you've identified a few things where these kids can separate themselves. And at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily even take into account that physical skill set. Now, go ahead.
Now, I was going to say the travel organization market that you touched on is that group of people that there's so many kids that fit into that neck of the woods. The elite are the elite, and the guy walking down the street, or the guy delivering the mail, he can recognize somebody that can really, really play. That isn't very hard, yes. But the vast, vast majority of the kids sit in that neighborhoods. I bet you, it's like the Jack Welch vitality curve, 10% of your, or 20% of your performers at the top end, and there's another 70% that sit in the middle, and then 10% on the bottom end that aren't so good. And that 70% is really where all the volume and the market is from a business standpoint. Yeah. And I think I saw somewhere where I guess it's 7% of high school players play in college. And that being said, I think a lot of the high school kids that are playing in a travel organization, they kind of convened in a group, and so the percentages of travel kids playing are probably higher overall. Because you're assuming you're probably getting the better kids from different schools, or affordability certainly has a lot to do with it as well. There's a lot of good players that are either priced out. Unfortunately, we try to help them wherever we can. But boy, that's a hard thing. So you're absolutely right about that, and that's the market of it all, where most of those kids reside. And again, our the opportunity to serve them and serve their families and help them in making them good choices is what we should be doing.
Let's take a short break from this call to talk about my day job, video. In 2019, if you aren't leveraging film to market your guys, you are doing them a disservice. So where do I come in? Well, filming one guy on your iPhone and texting it to coaches or posting it on Twitter is easy. But filming 25 or 50 or 100 or 200 is hard. And quite frankly, that's why you haven't done it already. That's why smart coaches partner with Play in School. We do all the work. We come to you. In fact, we can film 100 guys in the time it would take you to film just 4 or 5. That's why Coach Neiman, a future Hall of Famer, partners with us. If you'd like to see every team we partner with, visit playinschool.com/teams. If you'd like to see Coach Neiman's Pride of the Diamond from our last filming session, visit playinschool.com/POD. Now back to the call. It's not every day that we're going to have a Hall of Fame college coach / travel ball coach. So I think it'd be to my advantage to ask you a couple questions from the perspective of a college coach for the benefit of the travel ball guys and their parents and players. Let's dig a little bit deeper. You've identified some of the the intangible stuff that separates that 70% in the middle. But let's take a step back and look at a little more detail. The event starts on Saturday. What are some of the things that you and your staff are doing on, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before you get in the car? And before you get in the car, how are you deciding where are you going? What are some of those kind of pre-showcase things that you and your staff are doing on a regular basis?
And that is a good question and a very, complicated, way to go about things. It's really tough because there's so many events on certain different weekends, and again, you're not going to see us at the major, national championship type events from our standpoint, because that's from a DeSales University market is not our market. Yeah. We'll probably kind of migrate to where, that 70% reside, whether it be a ability we may have heard from, a travel organization, or we may have heard from a high school coach, or from the kid, individually, which is fine as well. So then, you try to cross-check a little bit to find out, a little bit more about them. And, one of the big things in Division III and a lot of, really good academic schools is, is it an academic fit? So if somebody rolls out an SAT score that's, maybe not good enough to get into sales or some other place, well, that individual's probably not, somebody we could even, enter into a conversation with, because we're wasting his time too. When you might be a great player, a good fit for us, we like everything about him, and then academically, it's a stretch at best. And even if you would get him accepted, it could be a 4-year struggle, and that's not fair. It's not fair to him at all. So, parents don't realize that sometimes too, how much that really plays into it. And for us too, for DeSales, I'm not an over recruiter. I'm a guy that, we'll go out and try to get the needs. I'm not going to bring in a bunch of guys just to keep them away from other schools. I think that is just an awful thing to do, and I think that happens more often than not. I won't do that. We'll recruit the need, and for instance, this year we've got a bunch of young outfitters. We don't really need an outfitter, and they seem to be everywhere, this year. So we may bring one in, but it's not fair to bring in another 2 or 3. And what am I doing? I'm standing out there with 8 or 9 outfitters. Why? Mm-hmm. Last time I checked, get 9 guys on the field at once. So, I think our roster control and the way we go about things is really good. So, again, if we go watch want to go to events somewhere, and if somebody contacts us, whatever, as an outfitter, and we probably would have said something previous anyways, like, look, we're really, not really looking for outfielders. We would not go there. I know in younger days it was a lot easier for me if you go to a place where there's multiple fields, and now as I've gotten older, that is my patience isn't quite as good. So, you go to a place and you're sitting in the middle of some building and there's 4 fields surrounding you, and like, wow, this is getting a little information overload. So you try to migrate to where, maybe the way they walked in out of the parking lot, they just look like ball players. We go watch some of them, but most of the work's done previously in terms of, hey, I'm going to be, at X facility this weekend, and here are my game times, and hope to see you, blah, blah, blah. And, a lot of times you'll go and you'll see somebody else, and it becomes this ongoing domino effect of player, and recognize, and what class are they, and these lists just continue to grow, and it's just an ongoing process. So not an exact science by any means. I do think the elite programs, the Division Ones, the Big D1s, SEC, the ACC, all those kinds are going to go to where, that's where your travel programs, the ones that really do a great job with the very best kids. That's where, you're going to be a top 5 rounder. That's where these schools are going to go. But the other 70%, they might not even be at your game. There may be 40 games going on, during at one time all across an area. And these guys are going to go to where, they think the fruit is. And you may be at a field, miles away, a day's drive away, and nobody's there. So I think it's really important for kids and parents to select, events, venues where you know people will be there, and then it's up to the player to show, hey, look at me, find me.
Right. What I'm hearing is in the days leading up to the event, you guys are working your communication. You're relying on your network. You're communicating with high school and the travel coaches and trying to figure out, pre-assess, and I use the word cross-check guys so that before you get in the car, at least there's going to be one guy there, maybe two, maybe 10 guys on the list that you need to go see have live at-bats or throw live in games. And obviously, you're not walking around with your eyes closed, so you're going to see other stuff happen. You're going to see random guys, but if you're that kid, that one of those 10 kids on the list, you're at the advantage. What that tells me is these kids and these travel coaches, they need to be communicating. They need to be communicating directly with you.
What's amazing, Rich, is like you may go to some of these events where there's 70, 80 teams, and the event hosts, who most of them do a really, really good job of trying to accumulate information, rosters, classes, height, weight, academic information. And there's some places you go to where, if there's 80 teams in there, there'll be 10 or 12 or 15 of them. It's a blank page. And that is that's just ignorant to me. And that should never, never, never happen. You are not fulfilling, the obligation you have, for those players and kids, which, the parents or the customers are writing you a check, and you can't deliver a roster somewhere. That's discouraging.
It's incredible. They will defend that action of not having a roster printed by saying that, if the college coach sees a kid they like, they'll figure it out. You did that 30 years ago. That's fine. I get it. But in 2018 and moving forward, when families are paying $2,000 to play for a team for the summer, and the whole point is recruiting, then it seems to make sense to print off a roster so that when Coach Neiman or somebody on his staff comes and pokes his head in the dugout and says, "Hey, do you guys have a roster?" Yes. It boggles my mind when the travel coaches show up without rosters. And quite honest, it's an embarrassment to the program.
I totally agree. You've got to be able to check your ego. Stop. I'm going to find the best player on your team and ask you about them, and that makes you feel better as a travel coach. That's fine. But you might have 11 or 12 other kids there that can play somewhere for somebody else that that you might not even give a great evaluation or opinion of either, just because you're more focused on your best guys. That, to me, is just ignorant. And again, 10 years ago, you didn't have to worry about it so much. I think there was a lot more communication. There was also far less teams, less travel organizations. They're everywhere now. So
just like the parents have so much information to go through that they can find, college coaches have information that is just overwhelming. It's coming from every direction, and so the better information they can get from people in your network, that's going to help you sift through that. And then when an organization, when a coach and a travel coach in an organization shows up to a ball field unprepared, you know what? That's information too. That kind of helps you. It helps you cross that guy off your list because he's not prepared. He's and not a good communicator, which is really, the bottom line in this whole thing. From both sides of the aisle, as far as travel ball coach and college coach, is it all comes back to communication and networking. All of it does. Speaking of communication, I get the feeling you're kind of old school. But what ways are you finding to be the most efficient to communicate when you're trying to communicate with travel coaches? Is it the old email? Is it pick up the phone and have a 30-minute conversation? Is it quick text back and forth? Do you find yourself DMing on Twitter? I know you're a Twitter guy. What do you find? I know the answer is probably all of the above, but what are you
That's
finding
correct.
happening the most right now? As far as you're not going to sign a kid off a text. I understand that, or a DM, but where do you find the majority of your communication happening today?
Well, the answer is correct, all of the above, especially with the adults, the travel guys, high school guys. I think the beauty of a text message is you say what you got to say, and response is say what you got to say, and you can move on. And it's certainly time efficient. There's no question about that. But a nice email sometime is fine. I am certainly not opposed to talking on the phone. I think I can communicate well in that regard. Most of our visits at the sales go extremely well when the player comes in with mom and dad, and that conversation is really good. And it's just down to earth and truthful. I think from a player standpoint, they appreciate the quickness and efficiency. I may be sitting on the recliner at night on a Sunday night at 9 o'clock, and I'm texting away, and my wife Roseanne will say, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm working.
Yeah.
Basically texting the kids, hey, just checking in, reinforcing our interest, anything I can do for you, or, maybe, hey, I'm just checking on, make sure you have all the application stuff in, that sort of thing. So I think the players kind of like that. And, the old days of, and there's still guys I think do this, they'll call you every day or every other day and say, hey, Rich, how you doing today?
Yeah.
Well, coach, I'm the same I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think that, I appreciate it when that didn't happen with Nolan and Doc, if there's a phone call or something, it's really, really important. Otherwise, I think it's easy to stay in touch with them. And, but the unfortunate part of electronic stuff is, they may not feel your emotion and the sincerity of what you're trying to convey to them, as opposed to a typed word, there's a lot different there. So all of them are very, very important. It's just a matter of, what aspect you need them in at the time you need them.
All right. Speaking of communication, tools, you mentioned it earlier. This isn't a show about me, but I do video. And obviously I'm not the only guy out there that's doing it, but are you able to, as a college coach, are you able to get some pretty good information as far as pre-assessing a kid through a video?
I think videos are fantastic, and I know it's not about you, but I'm going to plug you. You do a great job, and it's not too much. We try to tell and that's why we do it with you. We tell our players, make sure that it's not too long. Make sure you don't send a game film, because here's a true story. Somebody sent me like a game film, and first of all, that's annoying, and then he's a pitcher, and you kind of like what you see so much, and you're wondering who's the shortstop. So you sent me a film on somebody, on yourself, and I don't like you, and I'm going somewhere else. And that happens. It's not so much anymore, thank goodness. The other thing is, I think when kids do film, is to make sure that when you're sending a film, whether it's homemade or your high school coach, your travel coach is doing it, is to make sure you're putting something out there that you want to put out there. Yeah. I mean, if the worst thing you can do, we don't really write a lot of guys off on film. I think it's really, really good information to get up front, but sometimes you'll see some kids like, wow, man, that's just not athletic, or, that's not, that arm action's just not good, or just anything like that might throw up a red flag. And conversely, we've never gone the full gamut, like, hey, that guy looks good on film, we got to have him. Yeah. There's nothing like being in person as well, but it's such an efficient way to get a look at kids, before you go to that showcase on the weekend, before you talk to a high school or travel coach. I mean, it helps immensely, before, the next step is taken. So it is an important service, but has to be done right. And to your credit, Rich, you really do a fantastic job.
Well, I didn't mean to turn this into a commercial for myself. That wasn't the intent. But the bottom line is, obviously you are watching them. Even if it's for one swing, you'll turn it on, and that's what I was trying to get to.
No, and you're exactly right. We'll watch every single video that comes across our way. and with Pride of Diamond standpoint, we are, encouraging those kids to make sure the video is seen by whoever it is you want to see it, whatever school you're looking at. So, I think they have tremendous value.
Let me ask you, as far as, let's go back to the travel ball world for a second. What do you think the future of travel ball is? If if you were in charge and if you had the magic wand, what do you think the future is, or maybe even what do you hope the future of travel ball is?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm not sure. I think the American Baseball Coaches Association has taken a step by trying to, give them a voice and listening to them and that sort of thing. As I touched on previously, it just seems like it's so unregulated and everybody's got their way of doing things. And that's true of a lot of organizations and a lot of age levels, but it'd be really nice to see it somehow unified a little bit better. It's a very broad question. I think it's, it's a situation that I fear might get out of control at some point, but, luckily I think there's enough good people in it that, keep it checked and balanced. But, I don't know. It's funny. You'll go to one event to another event. Everybody's got their different things going on and, different criteria for teams to participate. And, I just think, I guess I would fear that it would get to a point where it's like AAU basketball or, especially basketball. I think it's more newsworthy at times where, there's these extra payments going on and, a little bit of corruption and turning their teams, the players on their organizations into colleges. And luckily, hopefully there's enough information and, news out there that, people, especially the college guys, refrain from even, entertaining that kind of a thought. So I would hate to see it go down that route. I don't think it will. I think the baseball community is really, really grounded very, very well. And, so hopefully that doesn't happen. But it's a heck of a tough question. I don't know. I don't know. I sleep well at night knowing that, provide them a good opportunity and make them better people on and off the field. So, I guess I'm living with that right now. And, what other folks do, they do. But it'd be nice to see it somehow more uniform.
Well, the reality is, and I think across every industry, the businesses that provide a valuable service at a competitive price, a price where the consumer feels that they have, gotten what they've paid for, those businesses succeed. And just because we're talking baseball doesn't make that any less true. And so the bad players, the bad apples, the organizations who are not doing things the right way, or they're charging way too much, or whatever it is, whatever causes discontent, those people don't seem to last very long because the consumer, the moms and dads who are writing big checks, will just go elsewhere. And I think that somehow that keeps that's keeping everything kind of in balance right now. And we have, I think I've seen some ebb and some flow. I think the pendulum is swinging a little bit right now, where we have seen bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger events, which was great, except until it wasn't, because they became so watered down. And I think the pendulum is swinging. Now I'm seeing a trend towards the smaller event, which is pretty cool. So we'll have to keep our eye on that. Let me ask you, you got a lot of things going on between, coaching DeSales and running an organization with 150 plus guys, not to mention all their parents and all the coaching staff that you have. What causes you struggles right now? What are the challenges that you're facing, and how do you get over those hurdles?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I enjoy my life and enjoy being busy, and a little bit of a more somber kind of a note. My father passed away from Lewy body disease it'll be 5 years in December, and watching his deterioration and dementia and all Parkinson's related symptoms, it just, came the reality of like, wow, what if that's me someday? Now, I have no idea, if staying busy and keeping that mind occupied is going to prevent it. But I do know I feel better about myself, about keeping busy and that sort of thing. So it's become a real personal thing that, I don't know what else I would do, and that's the big part of, why I do what I do. I love mentoring, my staff at the sales, the young guys, and have a lot of ex-coaches that are doing very, very well at other schools. Penn State, Stony Brook, a couple come to mind off the top of my head. The one guy's in the independent baseball as a manager for a long time. So, I love the mentoring prospect and, still giving them the room to grow and knowing that, I'm there for them. I think trying to keep staff. I think in reality Division III baseball an obstacle is, staff turnover.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've got to be able to help those guys along. That's why you're there. And at the same token, that can hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
As every 2 years you have a different grad assistant or a different hitting coach or whatever. So that's probably my biggest challenge at DeSales University right now. The travel stuff, the faces change, and people come and go. You've got choices in this world to make, and you were absolutely right. The consumer makes the choice of whether you're successful or not. And if you're honest, and that's really all you can hope to be is have people honest, then you can sleep well at night and you're probably going to have some long-term success. So I don't think that's a big obstacle. I think, always finding quality people to be able to develop the kids between the lines is always difficult. Money always is a factor. And that's always hard to do. And, sometimes there's a lot of sacrifice. You play 6-7 events in the summertime, you're giving up some weekends, and I'm not sure I would do it, but, we're asking people to do those kinds of things, and most of them love it. And thank goodness. And, some just, hey, this is really what I like to do. And maybe it's a springboard to other things. So I think coaches on both levels is probably my biggest challenge, keeping them at the sales or replacing them and having the right people on, the travel side to make sure, the kids are being served and treated fairly. I mean, that's probably the biggest obstacles.
Yeah. My next question was going to be, what advice would you give somebody who's looking to get into travel ball as a coach? But I think a lot of your comments in the last 3 minutes covered that. But is there one thing that you didn't touch on that you would tell a guy who's thinking about getting into travel ball or maybe starting his own organization that you didn't just cover?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, know what your why is. Why am I going to do this? If you want to coach, make sure that, somebody there can teach you the ins and outs of rights and wrongs, but still give you some leverage to make your own mistakes. I mean, you can't be robots, especially the travel side of thing, and certainly in college as a young college coach. Make sure there's not a dictatorship. Make sure that there's some interaction. Make sure that your opinions and your style is respected, and also knowing that the bottom line, at the end of the day, the guy in charge has to make the final decisions for many, many reasons. So I think that holds true on both ends. If you're going to start a travel organization again, why would I want to do this? Look at, nobody wants to lose money. You want to hopefully make a couple bucks. Nobody's getting rich at this. Nobody. But if you're providing a good service and you feel good about yourself, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And try to find things that are sustainable in your organization, and never be afraid to make adjustments as needed, because nobody's got all the answers. I know I don't, and that's the reality of it all. It's a changing environment, and you see it, not only year to year, but sometimes just from the summer to the fall in the travel stuff. So, be aware. Be humble, be humble. If you're not that and you can't check your ego somewhere and act like you invented the game, then you really should go do something else, because none of us, when you mentioned a little old school I am, but even anybody that respects baseball, it will look right through you and like, this guy's not for me, and whatever, he may have the best player in the world, and it just doesn't matter to me. Won't take it out on the kid, obviously, but my goodness, so what happens is you get bypassed, and people will go around you, and I don't think that's something an operator founder would want to do either. So, I think those are kinds of things, I think, in broad-based and general terms, but there's always good advice, no matter if it's this business, or anything else you do. It's all about the bottom line. No pun intended, of course.
Yeah. Let me ask you one more question, and then we'll start to wrap up. What is one thing that you're either trying to learn right now, or that you would like to learn in the future, personally?
Yeah, I don't know. I think with age comes wisdom, and again, I'll be 60 next month, and I don't know. I think I can't have anything specific there. I think my advice would always be, try to keep growing, try to be a lifelong learner. Whether it's something outside of the game too, I think is always good. And obviously the political arena these days is quite the mess. So, but I pay attention to it, and I probably learned a lot more in the last several years than I had in my lifetime. So, but I think you need that balance. Baseball's 24/7. So, just a lifelong learner in general. My wife is a nurse and a med-surg manager at a hospital and a major health network, and I love listening to her and what she's talking about, and it's funny how your management skills may help one another some days. So, learn from other people, always have an open ear, never close anybody out, treat everybody with respect. And then, you'd be surprised what you learn from people that, you wouldn't think otherwise. Folks are good people in general, are pretty good people, and there's a lot to learn from just being a good listener. And that's something, honestly, I've learned over the years, and I think that comes with age too, is to be a good listener. It's amazing what you can learn sometimes. And I think that's a skill that happens over time. And thankfully, I've emerged there a little bit, at least.
That's very cool. Well, Coach Neiman, listen, I appreciate your time today. I know you're a Twitter guy. I think I see you over on Instagram, but it seems like most of the baseball world is over on Twitter, and I will link to it. But do you know that Twitter handle off the top of your head that we can share with our listeners?
I'm not sure. I think I have no idea. Well, just put my name in. I think it'll come up. It's for Coach Knight. That's how inept I am.
I know.
Social media work.
You actually do.
It's just plugged in. I hit it and it comes up.
I know. I will put it in the. I follow you too, but I don't know off the top of my head. I will put it in. I'll put a link to the notes. But one thing I will tell you is if you go find his Twitter account right now. One of the things that you'll see is a lot of photos of the field renovation that's taken place. You want to talk about that for 2 seconds, and then we'll wrap that up?
Well, it's going to be absolutely amazing. 600 seats, press box, concessions, restrooms, lights. With standing room and everything else, will probably hold up to 2,000. So we're going to a lot of high school playoffs, state playoffs, district playoffs, conference playoffs, as well as other events. And we will be starting our own team camps. And you mentioned previously about the smaller events where it's a little more streamlined and focused. Well, we'll be doing that, and I can assure anybody that's listening that we'll make sure it's first class, and I'll make sure that you are served properly.
Well, for those who are listening right now, if you can imagine, DeSales baseball field is kind of in a little bowl, and there's just this natural amphitheater sort of feel behind home plate and up and down the lines. And the photos I've seen, basically the architects have taken this amphitheater and just built right on top of that. It was the most natural setting for a little mini stadium. So it's I can't wait to get up there. Hopefully I'll get up there soon. And Coach, I really appreciate it. Make sure you say hello to Nolan and Doc for me, and we'll talk again soon.
Appreciate you having me, Rich, and all the best to you. Keep up the good work.
All right, talk later. Thank you.
Yep, take care. Yep, bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. Coach Neiman is a great guy. Don't hesitate to reach out to him if you have any questions. If you'd like to recommend a coach for my show, please don't hesitate to shoot me a note at rich@playinschool.com or DM me on Twitter @playinschool. Again, my name is Rich Prado. I'm the founder of Play In School. My goal is to continue to create products and services that add value to you, the travel ball coaches, your players, and their parents. Visit playinschool.com to see some of the ways we're doing it. Or better yet, let's set up a call. Until next time, thanks for listening to Travel Ball Talk.